Something's recently changed, and I found it by accident. That now when I go to my YouTube screen on my computer, I got a whole new row of icons along the bottom, along the top, and one of them is save. And I'll show this to you, because if you haven't found this yet, find your update button. Of all of this, one of the interesting aspects is that in the midst of chaos, in dealing with a problem, sometimes you learn something. Sometimes something positive comes out of a negative experience. Well, it's like your customer service. Please feel free, speculate. You still own a part of this problem because you are Prime. As a reseller and content creator, now that I am a content creator, I watch a lot of YouTube, and I do it for a few different reasons. One is it's entertaining. Two, I use it as a source to look for answers to questions I have about reselling, shipping, repairing something, answers to questions that just occur to me randomly. And I also do it to stay connected to the community. And one of the issues I've had with YouTube since I started using it years ago is that you can't really save something in the middle. Like if I watch half of my favorite content creator and then I've got to go somewhere, I've got to hope that I can find it. Now, if it's a regular content creator, I can always go to his channel and then look for the red bar to only be across part of what I've been watching and pick it up there. Let's see, I got a little sun. Let's see if I can change this angle a bit here and get us out of the sun. If it's a one-off, if I did a search to, for instance, learn how to operate something on my camera or on the Canva software or the editing software, and it's a creator I don't often go out to, I pretty much had to watch the whole video or I would risk not being able to easily find it again. Something's recently changed, and I found it by accident. But it's not a complete answer, but it's a move in the right direction. Now, sometimes on this channel, I'll talk about the way I feel customer service is declining in general, or I'll mention a specific instance of finger pointing. Because again, as a reseller, we use a certain amount of equipment. We're using our cameras, our phones as cameras to take photos, maybe notes if you use Apple Notes on an Apple phone. We connect our devices to printers, maybe multiple printers. You know, we're using lots of people's software like eBay and Etsy. And if you use PayPal, you've got those guys in the mix. But you've got all these different software apps, like for me, auction apps. And they all work a little bit differently. But to some extent, they all have to interface. And I've run into a couple of instances recently, email server companies that I used for, since 1997. And I finally ended up canceling their service because they couldn't tell me why all of a sudden I wasn't getting my emails through their server system. So I ended up opening another Gmail account, and after 20 odd years, I finally just shut down the other. Well, I had a similar instance yesterday, but it's actually been going on a little longer. For about a month now, every time, just about every day we go into Amazon Prime would error out. If we left Prime to go do something else like watch YouTube and then tried to come back to it, it would hang up. We'd either get the Amazon smile with the little spinning circle or we'd get just the black screen of death where there'd be nothing there except for like the search bar and that type of thing. So we called them a week or so ago. We were getting tired of rebooting because that was the initial advice from the guy. When it happens, just reboot. And the question I always try to get answered from these guys is, what did you recently change that is now causing my static system? I mean, I'm not changing my system, I got the same cable company for years. I've got the same Apple box I've had since we moved out here to the lake. This big flat screen smart TV's been here for years. So I'm always asking these guys. And the second time we called Prime, which was yesterday, we got, I wouldn't want to speculate on what the problem is. Well, it's like your customer service. Please feel free, speculate. And before I got involved, they had Rosie open her laptop and go to Prime, and it worked on her laptop. And the lady seemed satisfied with that. Well, if it works on your laptop, it's not our problem. And that's about the time I walked in the room and I said, look, you guys are being paid to provide a service. I want to watch Prime on my big screen TV, and I don't want it to hang up. And she was, again, giving me the double speak. In fact, the double speak always reminds me of, there's an old movie. It's a Dolly Parton, Burt Reynolds movie. At least I think it's Burt Reynolds. But in it, Charles Durning is playing the governor. And the title is The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. And the rest of my story has nothing to do with whorehouses, except for the way politicians try to sidestep answers. So there's a scene in there where Durning is doing a little dance he calls the sidestep, and to confuse the people that voted him into the office and never actually give an answer. And that's what these phone calls to these places remind me of. So I told the lady, I said, because she kept pointing to the Apple box. She's like, oh, our system's working fine. It must be your Apple box. And I told her, I said, when I turn on my TV, I get a big screen with 23 icons for different services. Most of them I don't even use. I use YouTube, I use Prime, I use Netflix, and I leave this menu if I want to use the cable TV. I said, the rest of it I know nothing about. And she says, well, do you have your Apple remote? I said, yeah. She says, well, go ahead and see if there's an update for it. And I said, the remote has 6 buttons, 2 volumes, a pause, and a menu that doesn't take you anywhere except in and out of the program you're in. I said, you're talking to me like I've got a whole keyboard and I can do something with the information you're given. So this went on, and she kept saying she didn't want to speculate and that it wasn't their problem. And I said, honestly, even if Apple did make a change, and it is the Apple box, you still own a part of this problem because you are Prime. And if Apple made an adjustment, it's probably in response to something you, Prime Amazon Movies, did. So I tell her, I says, well, let me look around on this screen. I said, I don't program this TV. I don't program this Apple box. Nothing's changed for years. So I started pushing those 23 icons that I didn't recognize. And I told her, I said, YouTube works fine. Cable TV works fine. Netflix works fine. The only glitch is Prime keeps hanging up. So I finally found one of those 23 menu items, and I'll show it to you. I said, it looks like 3 popsicle sticks made into the letter A. I said, but honestly, I don't know whether this menu is for the TV, the cable box, or if it's for the Apple box. I don't know, so I'm trying to get the lady to tell me, how does your information from Prime get to my TV? What is the physical path? And the best I could get out of her was, if you have an internet connection, it comes in over the internet. And I said, okay, so it can probably be any of these boxes causing a problem or something you did back at network. So I open this symbol that looks like an A, and I think we figured out it stands for applications, so it's probably the big screen TV. And I looked around, and because she's asking me, do you have a Prime logo on your Apple box? And it's like, I don't know how to get to the Apple box information. I said, but I looked around and I opened this A, and I looked and I said, hey, there's a Prime logo. And the lady's like, okay. So I pushed it. I was like Rosie, don't know what it does, push it anyway. And on the side of the little screen that came up was an update feature. It said update. So I told the lady, I says, hey, I don't know where I am, but I can update. So I hit update, and sure enough, it solved the problem. But it was total random chance. And as long as I was there, I went over to Netflix, and there was an update, so I hit that one. And then I went over to YouTube, and there was an update, and I hit that one. And of all of this, one of the interesting aspects is that in the midst of chaos, in dealing with a problem, sometimes you learn something. Sometimes something positive comes out of a negative experience. So here we've been rebooting Prime every couple of days for a month because they couldn't tell us what to do. And accidentally we seem to have solved the problem. And the bonus is that now when I go to my YouTube screen on my computer, I got a whole new row of icons along the bottom, along the top, and one of them is save. And I'll show this to you, because if you haven't found this yet, find your update button. Now when I'm watching YouTube on my big screen, I can save a video. And then there's another bar along the top that says library. And when you go into it, you can replay videos that you have saved. And it's like, this is cool. I wonder if it updated my laptop and my iPad. So I looked. Nah. On one of them, there's now an icon to access what I've saved. So I guess if I save it on my TV, I can then recall it on the other devices. But I haven't yet found a save button on the other devices. So if you know how to do it, send me a note, drop me an email, because it sure would be nice to be able to save videos, especially now that the CEO of YouTube says that over half of the YouTube is being consumed on TVs these days. And I know when I'm just watching it, if I'm not focused on just getting an answer on my laptop, I watch YouTube on the bigger TV. Part of it's my aging eyes, part of it because I can sit comfortably in the living room, maybe watch while I'm having lunch or dinner. But it was a real positive experience about YouTube. It's a trend, it's a good trend. So now maybe I'll get a save button on my laptop and my iPad soon. All right, I'm going to go on in and show you what I'm talking about. So here's my TV in the living room, smart TV. You know, we've all come to expect this plug and play mentality. Whether you bought a Rollo printer or something else, or you're hooking up your new device, like I'm about to buy a new laptop. When I do, I'm going to want it to be easy to outfit it and upload it with the data from my old laptop. You know, I just bought that 4 terabyte drive. It was a plug and play. You push it in the socket, it works. And we kind of come to expect that. So when there's a glitch between all these different companies interfacing with each other, the trend seems to be they don't want to work with you to make it function. They want you to buy it, be happy, and never call customer service. And like I told the lady, you tell me it's not your system, it's the Apple box. All right, you tell me I should call Apple. If I call Apple, I said, and I've done it before, they say, oh, it's not our problem, call Amazon. You know, very few companies actually, even though they're all in the interface business, very few companies will actually step beyond their border. Here's my Apple remote. Once I've got the TV on, and you notice it has 6 buttons. And the lady's like, oh yeah, use your remote to get in and access. And it's like, I don't know if you're that familiar with old Apple boxes, because this one's volume, that one pauses, that one takes me to display, and that one backs me in and out of the page I'm on. So when I turn my TV on, I get these 23 menu selections. I use YouTube, Netflix, Prime, and I go to a different screen if I want cable. So the lady says, go into Prime, we'd get this screen, I'd select rows, and instead of the opening, I'd get the smile and a spinning wheel of death. Or, well, I'd be backing out of one option and going into another, I'd get a black screen with just these three. And I'm trying to explain these three icons to her, and I've since learned that this one actually means save. That's search, obviously. I'm still not quite sure what this one is. But sometimes when you hover over them, oh, I guess it's main menu, they open. This trend to try to hide everything until you run your cursor over it, I find frustrating. So now Prime is working. What I ended up doing is I'm looking around here and I tell her, no, I go into the Apple TV box right here. And I said, and there's nothing there about Prime. And that seemed to confuse her. But I started basically looking and I found this one, like 3 popsicle sticks. It seems to want to show me apps. And it had this whole long line of apps. HBO, Peacock, Paramount, YouTube, Tubi, Stars, and Netflix. And I told her, I says, there's a Prime Video logo. And I press it. And now it says open. But when I opened it the first time, while I had her on the phone, it said update. So I clicked on that, and it gave me update. And after that, Prime started working. So I said, well, that's curious. So I went to YouTube, and I did the same thing. I went to Netflix, and I did the same thing. So now when I'm on YouTube, there's my channel, my user symbol. When I went here, I noticed that the update changed this row of menu selections. I now have more of them, some of which I don't even know what they are. But if I open a video, like this one's Dumpster Marcus, and we let the commercial play out, that was one of the other things we noticed. Now it almost perpetually in this corner over here says play without ads. So they're really pushing this whole play without ads. So if we pause this now, look at this. A whole big long line now of icons. Bell notification. I can't really seem to freeze this. Bell notification, a link to his channel, captioning, thumbs up or down. I'm not sure what this one is yet. Oh, comments. Comments. I can comment right from my TV now if I had a keypad, which I couldn't do before. And here's save. This is the one I was excited to see because now, this is still hard to do with this little remote because it has so few buttons. And I come over here and I hit save. It now lets me save it to watch later. And then it's showing me a bunch of my own videos. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but these are my channel videos for Cabin Fever. But if I click this and say watch later, and then I back out, and I go to something else, like here's Lavender Clothesline, and then I want to come over here, there's this new one, see, library, and it's showing me all the places I'm subscribed to. So I guess the CEO's right. YouTube is getting into the whole watching. And up on top, there's a whole row that I never had before. And if I come over to this one, watch later, watch. There it is. There's Dumpster Marcus. And I can go right back into that and rejoin it. And I never knew it. All right, playlists. These are Dumpster Marcus is a playlist I watch. Here's Ryan over at Galaxy. I watch him. Of course, I watch this guy while I'm editing. And there's my podcast. Now, I'm not quite sure why these are on the watch list. Probably because I'm in them so often. But I just thought that was phenomenal. So if I open up my laptop, some things changed. I can now see all my subscriptions here. I can see the subscriptions here. And it looks like this got longer. Here's that podcast thing again. Here's learning. I don't seem to have the saves. So it changed my laptop's layout, but it did not include a way to save things. But I can catch this watch later, and there is the dumpster Marcus I was watching. And I got to that off of a button here that says watch later. Let's open one of these videos. Say, over here in the corner, I am not seeing any new icons over here that allows me to save it. If I pause it, if they'll appear. Nope, they didn't appear. I can shuffle the playlist, I can loop the playlist, but I don't see a way from this screen to say watch later. Alright, so if I look at the iPad, it's got the typical home, shorts, subscriptions, and you, which in this case, if I touch that, I think it'll just take me to my channel. Oh, well, it did show me the history, which would let me get to Dumpster Marcus, but I haven't watched this one in some time. So I don't know.